and I've got Greg Parks, Ellen Hill, and Kelly Davies, who are all strong listers from last year. And I just wanted to kind of get their insights to pre-marketing a listing, giving the presentation, and then what they do to market a listing and get ready. So I'll start with Greg, and then I'm going to go to Kelly, and then I'll go to Ellen. So Greg, if you'll share a few minutes, and then at the end, we'll ask questions if you'd like.
I think I did mine a little bit different, but in terms of listing preparation, it really depends. Do I know anything about the house? Do I know the person real well? Do I have that advanced knowledge, or am I kind of going in blind? So assuming that I don't know much about the property, the first thing I'm going to do before I ever have a conversation with them is try to understand as much as I can about the property that I'm going to try to list. So the first thing I'll do is go to FMLS, see if there's any listing history out there. If there isn't, I'll also look at the tax records. I'll look at the neighborhood, try to get some neighborhood comps. I'll look at the automated valuation tools, just stuff that I can get together very quickly so that I can feel confident when I have the conversation with the prospective seller. When it comes time to have the call, I'll take, I'll call, introduce myself, tell them the purpose of my call, make sure that it's a good time to speak for them. They may be at work or have other things going on, and then try to discuss the objectives and the timing of their house, when they want to put the house on the sale or on sale, and then of course schedule the listing appointment. I also try to use that conversation to gather whatever information I can about the house. Have they done any upgrades since maybe they purchased? Are there any improvements to the house in general, especially like kitchens, bathrooms, hardwood floors, finished basement, the things that really drive values? And then I want to understand, did they do them, or were they that way before they bought? So I can kind of take a look at what their investment was, what they've done to it, and maybe look at it over time, how that might have affected the investment. And then thank them for the call, or thank them for their time. And then I go about trying to compile all the stuff that I'm going to put in my listing presentation, and I'll cover that in the listing presentation part. So,
great, good information, Kelly. How do you prepare for? And I know you do lots of preparation. So,
actually, I didn't realize that there was an outline.
Okay.
So,
so just tell us what you do.
Well, before we prepare, I think the thing when I was a new agent and when I continue to struggle to get listings, the big joke is that I have farmed my neighborhood, and so those are the only listings that I ever have, unlike Greg, who actually sells houses all over the place. So the first thing I was going to talk about was how to get a listing, because preparing for a listing, you have to have a listing to prepare for. So this goes back to a couple ways. Farming, which you all know that I've talked about, it's a long and tedious process. So I have passed out those home improvement magazines that I used to drive over to Stone Mountain to get. My husband and I would put labels on them, we put them in bags, and I still deliver them. So the point on that is I'm delivering something of value consistently every month. And as you all know, it's a joke that I have these Chad's Walk listings, but in reality, I've been doing this for 5 years, every month, but that's only 60 things. But I'm every month, the third week of every month, it's in their driveway, unless it rains, and then they get to the next month. But that's what it's all about. So it doesn't have to be anything big, but it has to be something all the time. So there's a friend of mine that's into wine. So she has a wine newsletter. She's also an agent. She sends out a wine newsletter. Might not be good for the Baptist people, but it's good for her database. So anyway, farming, hard work. You have to be consistent, not an immediate return. I would say 3 years, so 3 times 12, 36 magazines later, I got my first listing. I've never looked back. There are 2 other agents that live in my neighborhood. So consistent on something. And I don't think postcards are, I do just sold and just listed postcards. I did bring some postcards from other agents. Postcard blasts are good, like, you know, in the spring. You know, you get people, do you want a CMA, those kind of postcards, but you do it once and you don't do it again. So I'm like all about hoping. So the other thing is phone calls. We've all heard this. We all hate it, or maybe a couple people do like it. But lead generation. So lead generation can be calling expireds. It can be calling for sale by owners. A lot of us that have been in the business a lot of years, we don't want to do that. All I know is that if you do want to do it, it does work. The other thing is if you don't want to call people you don't know, you should be really involved in something. I just say network within the groups you're involved in yourself. If it's junior league, whoever you volunteer for, if you go to church, if you're politically minded, if you work for Habitat for Humanity, if you're in Rotary, you can't go home every night and watch TV. So if you don't want to make phone calls, you need to be out doing something and let people know that you're a realtor. And then if you're blessed to have children or grandchildren and they do anything, go to their baseball games, go to their soccer games. I actually sponsor a family in our neighborhood. They have 3 boys and they play East Side baseball, and it costs me $500 to have my logo on a banner that goes to every game. And I go with them. So the kids don't know who I am. They think I'm weird, but their parents are okay with me. And then you've heard this before, don't be a secret agent. If you're not in the mood, don't wear your badge. If you are in the mood, wear your badge all day. Go to Costco, go to the grocery store, go to Trader Joe's. Because every time, even if it's only the checkout person and you've got 2 people behind you, everyone will ask you how the market is if you have on your badge. So, you know, it's tough. There are days when you don't want to do it, but the bottom line is this is hard. You know, it's not easy. People don't just call you up and say, hey, I'd like you to list my house.
Great information. Awesome. Ellen.
Well, first, I want to say thank you all to all of the agents who helped me get started. Any good idea I have is because of y'all. I feel like I tried to spread the questions around and tried to call a bunch of different people, so none of you knew how little I knew when I first got started. And I just want to thank you all so much for helping me get started. I feel very underqualified to sit here, so thank you all. When I get a call for a listing, I make an appointment, and then I'll get off the phone and I'll start searching for it. A lot like Greg, I'll try to see if there's old FMLS entry for it, if there's a history, old pictures, that sort of thing. I'll do an AVM search where I'll go in like Todd taught us last week, and I'll edit to look, kind of have just a general idea of what it looks like. Todd talked about a 5-tier pricing strategy where you start on a national level and you kind of pull just a national statistic or an article, pull a statewide one for the 4th level. Then I go pull a zip code in the, is that Real Evaluator? A zip code search. Then I do a 1 mile with Trend Graphics. And then I'll do a CMA through CMA Toolkit. So I'll pull all of that together. I'll do what I can to preview a neighborhood beforehand. So if I've got an appointment on a Thursday, I try to go beforehand and see all the competition as best I can. And I'll search like a buyer, not necessarily just that neighborhood. So if my house is in these 3 school districts and it's 4-bedroom with a master on Main, I try to go see everything else that a buyer's agent would go look at, and I take the flyers from each house, so when I'm in the presentation I can say, look how bad these flyers are. But that way I kind of know what we look like compared to our competition. Then about the day before, I'll drive out to the house, shoot a video out front, and it's just kind of a fake, just listed video. And I will send it to the seller in a BombBomb email attached to it with my bio and reference sheet. So the night before, they get a just listed video from me, and then in the body of the email I write, here are my references, here's my resume. Please go look at me on Trulia, on Zillow, see my reviews, especially for people who don't know me, because I think that really helps, especially being younger, that they can see that all of these other people have had such a good experience with me.
So are you leveraging that online
Yes.
reviews? Because
Yeah.
you know, agents that have been in the business 30 years have 0 reviews, and you probably have 25 or more.
Yeah.
And so great.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I mean, everybody who ever closes with me, everybody who I take around and then decide not to buy, I can ask everybody for a review. So I've got a bunch of reviews online. And then I'll call the person the night before to confirm the meeting, and I'll say, now tell me a little bit more about your house so I show up as prepared as I can, kind of like what you were saying, and talk through asking, what improvements have you done to the house? What do you love about this house? And I try to glean as much as I can in the confirmation phone call so that when I walk in, I'm armed as best as I can.
Good info. Greg, now we're on to the presentation. Huh?
I don't want to compete with her. That's pretty good stuff. I mean, yeah, so on the listing presentation, I mean, I am amazed at some of that stuff she just said. That's really going the extra mile, and I think probably where this business is headed. I mean, hopefully some of us will be done and retired. Anyway, so the listing presentation package, I always kind of kid. I try to put as much information in there to make their eyes roll back in their head and just feel like I've outworked anybody else that walks in there. And that's probably the engineer in me. I try to move at a very quick pace because I know I do have so much information in there. And you kind of have to gauge, where they are in it and how much they want to see and talk about. And I have to make sure that I give them enough time to tell me about the house, like she was saying, in terms of what made them buy the house. What is it that they think is special about the house or distinguishes the property. But this is an example of the package I put together. The first 8 slides or so talks about Berkshire Hathaway and me in terms of my, my background and any different awards or whatever that I may have received. But it's really an introductory thing. To sell Berkshire Hathaway, I always have the chart that shows, for the last 5 years we've been leading the market. I have a little chart that shows, my background prior to real estate. I did that originally because I didn't have much of a background in real estate. And over the years, I've been able to build on that, talk about membership and the Atlanta board and different performance levels, based on sales and such. And then I go into I use the pre-printed material. I used to have just this, and it was really the advanced property marketing, and I can pass that around. That's probably the easiest way to do it. But the advanced property, I had the intro stuff on me, then I went into advanced property marketing, and then I went into the guts of the numbers. Now with this package, which is really fantastic, I just use the summary part about me and Berkshire Hathaway, then I divert to this, and then I go into the numbers and what I think the house should be valued at, and then end it with my marketing plan. And it seems to work well. It's not as fluid because I jump back and forth a little bit. But what I include in that package, and that's really kind of the key, I talked about the introduction. When I get to the market stuff, that's really the strength of the package, I think. I use trend graphics to show what's happening in terms of, what's the inventory that's out there, days on market, maybe average price, absorption rates, that kind of thing. I used to use Real Valuator a lot more than I do now because I was trying to use it to show the distressed property activity in the area that was putting pressure on the prices downward. There's not as much of that going on right now, so it's less useful to me personally for the way I used it. I always use a Zillow's estimate and show it, and I don't support it. I tell them, Zillow doesn't know what you've done to the house. Zillow doesn't know that the other house down the street was distressed. All they know is square footages. But I show it to them because I tell them the consumers see this, and you're gonna have to defend it, whether it's right or wrong. I also look for convergence. I use a lot of different data sources because the more convergence you get on a price gives you confidence that maybe you're pricing it right. So I look at the Real Valuator valuation that's there, the value map it's called. I print that out. I use the Georgia MLS has CRS Power Tools, which is an appraisal type tool. It's an automated valuation, but what I like about it is that it uses 3 different methodologies. It uses dollars per square foot. It takes a look at when they bought the property and then looks at the federal indices and sees what, kind of like a Case-Shiller, what's happened since they bought it. And then it also looks at, for houses that are sold, what was their assessed value and what did it sell for, and it develops that relationship. And then you can take your house, see what its assessed value is, and apply that relationship. Again, if you get convergence amongst the 3, you get some, high confidence that it might be a good price. So it's heavily data. I know some of you are already rolling back in your eyes, but and that's the approach I take. I use the BHS interactive AVM, and I'm doing this in order of less confidence in the numbers to good confidence in it. And then the thing I end up with is my CMA from FMLS, and that's where I'm really putting my stock on it. I've previewed the houses. I've made adjustments based on the improvements that a house might have. And so that's kind of the core of the numbers part of that presentation. And then I follow it up with my marketing summary of what I'm going to do that we'll talk about, I guess.
Great. Kelly, share.
I absolutely agree with what Greg and Ellen have said. I guess I'm a numbers person too, which is kind of odd if you know me. But you need to, one of the things I wrote is ultimately it's your personal presentation, the confidence that you show, the passion that you exhibit, and your preparation that will get you the listing. So if I go through a lot of the things like Greg does, and when all the numbers keep coming up, like in a certain range, then their house that they think is $450 should really be $375, and everything you've showed them is $375. They kind of have lost their steam. So I think numbers are really important. The more ways you can get to any number, the better. So what I usually do is I've actually tried to use the iPad, and it may be that the people that I'm working with who are my age or a little below or a little above, they seem to be impatient with the iPad presentation. They're much better with our booklet. So I've tried. The thing that I will say is, unless you are Atlanta Fine Homes, not the company, but that's what you're selling, a country club house, Tony, we need a picture of a house that isn't a mansion on we're gonna sell your house, because my people, even in Chad's Walk, that are $450 are the normal house I think in East Cobb is a 5.4 and a door. It's got a little brick front, or it's a contemporary house. So I think that we should have choices of slides, that if we're gonna sell their house, it shouldn't look like a $1.2 million house. But anyway, let me know.
No, that's good.
So what I do is I absolutely love this, and my people seem to love it as well. So what I do is in the, first I go through the book, and I love this page right here. You can tell right away if you've got people that are gonna follow you page by page, or people that are just like, come on with it, I wanna see the numbers, what are you gonna list my house for? So you have to, guide yourself, appropriately. But the reason why I like this page, and this is actually what I say, is that Mr. and Mrs. Seller, today, I'm gonna show you a lot of numbers. I've previewed houses. I've now seen your house. I know that you have hardwood floors and not shag carpeting, whatever. So today, we're assessing the situation. of what the market is, what your house is, what we think we're gonna do to sell your house. So we're gonna design a plan with all that data that we've gathered. We're gonna implement the plan. We're gonna measure the results, and then we're gonna optimize the things that work. So as you know, selling your house is not a static process. It's continually changing. In 2 days, somebody else is gonna sell. In 3 days, somebody else is gonna come on the market. So the great thing about my company is I have all kinds of reports that I can send you if you're into reports. I can send them to you weekly. I can send them to you daily. What I always do is I set my sellers up immediately as soon as I get the listing as a buyer for the same criteria that their house is. And I tell them that. So every day, if something comes into FMLS, you will see who your competition is. You'll also see them roll off because their contingent due diligence are pending. I love this page. So then you just flip through however it is appropriate for whoever you're talking to. In the front part, what I do is I love these. So preparing your house for sale, discovering the unique story of your property, and I actually forgot to bring my home book, but I make a home book for all my houses. And what I usually do is I take this brochure and I cut it in half, so they only have the front page. And when I first get there, I go through with this page and I write down everything I see. So I have what their house looks like, and then the story of their property in my home book. The first page is I have the seller write a letter to the prospective buyer as to why they bought the house. Even if they bought it as an investment, they bought it as an investment because the school districts are good or whatever the reason is. So I have the seller's letter to the buyer, then I have the buyer's report, all the pictures of the listing, the seller's disclosure, the HOA, lead-based paint if you need it, a survey, anything about the house. So that's the first section. The second section is about schools, because around here that's usually important. So I have just page 1 of the web page, and greatschools.com. Most of the schools around here are rated a 10. So that's elementary, you flip it, middle school, you flip it, high school. If it's Walton, Wheeler Magnet program, Lassiter has an excellent band, anything else about the high school. Flip that, you go into East Cobb. We have the thing that they made before where there's any neighborhood we're in, Vinings, East Cobb, Berkshire Hathaway has that little story. So I have a front page that says East Cobb, and it opens up, and we have the Berkshire Hathaway, what is East Cobb? It's 4 pages. Then I'll put in because I mostly work here, and Roswell has the same thing. I'll put in like the East Cobber magazine, just something that it identifies it as an area, because we're not Marietta. West Cobb is not Marietta. Marietta is Marietta. So anyway, I have the area, then in the next section I have Atlanta, I guess. So then my idea about having a home book is anytime you have a flyer where the seller's disclosure is stapled to it or whatever, and there are 10 of them on the house or in the house on the dining room table, and the buyer's agent is showing 8 houses, they are in and out of those houses, they grab a flyer, they go on the back page or the back floor of the car. The end of the day, they can't remember was this the house that had the whatever. So my idea of the home book is that they have to stand at the dining room table, at the kitchen counter because it's vacant, flip through the home book. As soon as the agent goes through the super lockbox, we all get a hit in our email. I have a cut and paste that says, "Hi Nancy, thanks for showing 123 Main Street. If you need any more information about the house, like a seller's disclosure, whatever it is, please email me. But most importantly, you will be getting a showing suite survey later today. My seller and I would really, and it's in italics, appreciate your feedback." I have found that since I do that cut and paste, even with buyer's agents that show 8 to 10 houses a day, they will fill out that showing suite survey. and then I have the Showing Suite survey come to my people. It's a summary every Monday at noon. So I had a house, which Todd was well aware of. I had 80 showings in 3 months. And by every Monday at noon, that summary got longer and longer and longer. They wouldn't reduce the price. What could I say? But it was all there. Everything was documented. So this stuff is wonderful. Everyone loves Countdown to Moving. I put this in here just to tell them that I'm putting a
Hold that up higher.
a home warranty on their house, and I tell them why, and that it's free to them, and that most probably the buyer is going to ask for one, so they might as well be using a home warranty that I know is good. Then I also include this, not that I want them to do an inspection, but just to talk about the inspection, and that this is going to be another negotiation, so that if we've agreed on a sales price and we've agreed on closing costs, which I try not to, what I want to get them thinking about is that if they agreed to $5,000 in closing costs, they may have to agree to more money in repairs. So don't just be giving away money in the beginning, because you may have to crack in the foundation. The people love the house. You may have to pay Trotter or AquaGuard $5,000 to fix the crack in the foundation. So anyway, just real quickly, the back of this, what I do, I still feel like I'm new. There are people in this room right now that have worked 10 years longer than I have. So it's always nice to be able to have information about yourself. I've been very fortunate. But if you don't, which I didn't for years, we have a great company. So there was a meeting at the Galleria at the beginning of the year, and it was called Surge 2015. So what I did is, there are like 3, if you download that from the intranet, there are like 300 slides. So you have to pick the number that you want and then just save those and print them. But, you know, we have Dan, who's amazing. We have local company awards. Obviously, if you're working with a veteran, I don't know that anybody else has this, so you need to know about this program and present it. We have this Good to Know TV campaign. Anyone who watches TV, even if you're on watching baseball games, I mean, our ads seem to be everywhere now, not just on the HGTV. Yeah, HGTV. I don't even know if this is rolling yet, International MLS, but even if it is or isn't, or they're a $300,000 house and they're not in it, it's about the company, it's about the support that we have. And what I like to say is, if the company supports me, I have less to do, so I can work harder for you. Drive time, this is awesome, so I always demonstrate that. And if I don't happen to have a listing, I'll come in and ask Alicia for one of Annette's listings. And so it's the text to text, and you can see that. And then you do drive time. Where do you work, Mr. You know, if Mr. Buyer works at the Galleria and here's your house, this is how they can pull it up. And then I always talk about these open houses, because for some reason, last year nobody knew about them. And this year, everybody knows about them. They've seen the signs. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we work for a great company. If you're new, you've got a company behind you. Again, I'm just going to repeat what I said. It's your personal presentation. If you have gone through all the time that Ellen has gone through to make this cool video that I'm going to learn how to do, if you go in there prepared, you're going to get the listing. You're going to act like you get the listing. You're going to have answers to all the questions. And what about the guy down the street? You're going to know the answer. If you go in there unprepared, you're going to be nervous and you might not get the listing. So it really isn't magic. It's just, if you want the listing, be ready to get it. And then just shoot them with buckshot.
Yeah, that's great information. Ellen?
Okay, so I use this as well. I probably should use the iPad. I'm probably who it was like targetly created for, but I love this.
Haven't you won like
Yeah.
3 of them or something?
I love this because it's a great leave behind. It looks really professional. I'll just walk through this as plain as, simple as I can. Like you, I love this page. And when I'm on this page in the beginning, that's when I talk about me. I'll talk about the company, and then I'll bring me up, and I'll talk through my background, and I leverage how the fact that I'm new in real estate isn't a bad thing. It means I'm hungry. It means I've got time to devote to you. It means I've learned the freshest technology, and I know this contract, not the contract 10 years ago. And so I really do leverage the fact that I'm new, even though,
Great.
it probably isn't that great. And I'll talk through references, and I'll offer if they want to talk to anybody on the phone, I can give them any reference's phone number. I'm happy to. And a few people have, and then I definitely win the listing, so I'm okay with that. When I'm on the page about the Advanced Property Marketing System, I've taken the time and written down everything I do for a listing, and I've coordinated it with these points. So I'll talk through assess, and I'll say that's my phases 1 through 4, and I outline everything I do in that phase, and then I talk about design, and that's these phases, and I just literally will walk through everything I do. At the end, I won't leave this with them if I know that they're hiring other people or talking to other people, or if I get any kind of idea that they're going to go with like a Duffy and do it themselves. I make the joke, I'm not going to teach my competition how to do it, and I'll bring it home with me. But I've brought it, I've showed it to them, we've talked through it. And it's, I've made it seem as long as it can, so it looks really impressive. And then I just walk through the rest of the presentation with them. And then when we get to the numbers, like y'all said, you can kind of tell if somebody cares about the numbers or not. But I use the Unibind, and I'll bind a Toolkit CMA presentation with all of my information. And I'll start in that 5-tier. I'll start with national, then I'll go to state information, zip code, 1 mile radius, and then the neighborhood. And I'll print out all the photos in color and just walk through it and talk about what this one has that you don't, and what you have that this one doesn't. And so it's nice because I'm not necessarily a numbers person, but it looks like I am, and I can really lean heavily on all of this. And sometimes people's eyes just glaze over and they believe me.
That's all you need.
It's great.
Oh, Ellen, yeah.
Yeah, it's wonderful. I always come with, in the back, I keep a listing agreement with my disclosures and the GAR, protect yourself when selling a house. So I come and I say, I've got this if we're ready, and we can date it for next week, and I just kind of put it to the side so that they know I'm not messing around.
Can I have your keys, please?
Really. And I bring examples of marketing materials I have. I bring brochures that I've got, show the pictures. All of these houses were staged, and I talk through about staging here, and I'll bring in the preparing your property for sale. Stacy, did she slip out? She's wonderful.
She had to go to a doctor's appointment.
My background is interior design, and I should be able to stage a house, but people don't really listen to me. I've learned they don't take me seriously when I tell them that this is dated and you need to update this. But Stacy comes in and very lovingly will tell everybody to do that. So I talk through how I'll bring in a stager, I'll bring in a photographer, and I'll show them these in comparison to their competition. Because I've brought those wrinkled piece of black and white papers, and this looks like a whole lot better. And when I talk through all the things I do, part of it is I do an open house preview party. So the hour before it's open to everybody else, I mail out an invite to the neighborhood. And so I bring this and show it to them, and talk about how I want your neighbors to come, and I want them to walk through the house and talk about who they know that might want to sell, or who they know that might want to buy in the neighborhood. And so I just walk through all this pretty simply. And this wasn't as long as your talk,
Good
but that's what I do.
information. Good.
Where do you get your flyers done?
I use Express Docs.
All right, so I thought what we do is maybe go down to each of you if there's anything that you didn't say or any final comments that you wanted to add to it. I think all of you have given us invaluable information. I think we're all learning. I mean, I want to go back and sell something now, just learning. But each of you are learning too. I see that you're writing notes. So if any final comments from...
One thing I missed, I think it's kind of important. I always take a picture of the property, and I think somebody else mentioned it. One, so I know what it looks like, and you can kind of see the lay of the land, but to personalize whatever it is. So I'm not showing that $1 million house, that's nothing like theirs. So, and that's in the, in the toolkit or the CMA as well as that presentation. I also will always bring samples of the home book and the marketing material that I use. So I usually bring, some of the other things, the text writer, and to help embellish what the plan is for marketing the home.
Like Ellen, I have always, I had a mentor over at another company who did this, so I thought you had to do it. I've always staged every listing I've ever had. I don't have an interior decorator background. I walk in and I know if it's right or wrong, but I don't know what to fix. So it's just my personal part of, like, if they're gonna pay me however much money they're gonna pay me to sell their house, it seems like I should have some skin in the game. And that's kind of what I said to them. So I pay for 10 hours of staging on every property I've ever sold. If they're under 200,000, it's not usually 10 hours, it's 5 hours because it doesn't take that long. I always have used a professional photographer. I'm actually a pretty good photographer myself. Again, under $200,000, I will take my own pictures. But now in this age of everyone buys their house first on the internet, we all get phone calls, I want to see these 10 houses. I don't feel like I can compete with a professional photographer. So it's $95. I mean, come on. So then the other thing, which nobody talked about, but I have two, say, bugaboos about sellers, especially if they lived in their house a long time. I make them, before we go active, go up into their attic and look for evidence of critters. I am tired of critters. So if they have a problem, I want to get rid of it before we list. And, they will swear to me, oh, I had squirrels in the attic 5 years ago, but they never came back. Okay, great. Get the rat traps out of there. So, so that's just one thing. And the other thing is mold. So I'm not a mold expert, never going to say I am, but if you're in a basement that smells creepy, or you see something that you're unsure of, I would just highly suggest that they have it looked into. Because if we don't, the inspector is gonna raise a red flag and we could lose the whole deal over what Clorox in a bucket could do, because it's just mildew, it's nothing else. I do send out just listed and just sold postcards. I totally believe in them. As you know, I farm my own neighborhood. So when I list a house anywhere else, I send it to that neighborhood and I send it to Chad's Walk. If I list it in Chad's Walk obviously gets it. So I do just listed and just sold, so they get double whammied. These are just two that I got. So here are my little dinky contributions to the post office. This is Matt Hester, and this is Gail Harris. So, and these came to me in Chad's Walk. So, I mean, this is more like what I would call a drip campaign. They came in the spring. What is your house worth? Give me a call. So there are all kinds of ways to do postcards. I'm sure these are really expensive. I don't know. So anyway, the last thing that I wanted to say is, if you're in a neighborhood that has covenants, the really nice thing to do would be to get a hold of them yourself And if you sell in that neighborhood all the time, have them saved on your own desktop and print them out and give them to, if you're the listing agent, you give them to the buyer at closing. That's kind of cool because their agent didn't give it to them. And if you're the buyer's agent, you should really give it to them. Because if, you know, some of these like Arvida and John Whelan neighborhoods, they're tough. You know, they'll put a lien on the house if they don't cut the grass. So that's just, I'm all about if you give, you receive. So if you give a calendar magnet and make a joke about it, which I've also done that, I walk through my neighborhood starting November 1st. It says Happy Thanksgiving. It's just the little tear off by the month magnet. I make a joke about it. It doesn't even stick on real stainless steel refrigerators because they're not magnetic. But what I do is the neighbors that I know, I stick it in their mailbox or I hang it on their door. The neighbors I don't know, I knock on the door. So I knock on at least 30 doors every November to make sure that the new people know me. Oh, and then the other thing, just real quick, is if you're farming a neighborhood, again, it's all about giving. I started this and it was really awkward the first year. I've now done it 5 years and it's expected. But the weekend before school starts, I have a Meet the New Neighbors party because a lot of these new neighbors don't have kids going to school. So anyone from the August before to the August, so it's not of the calendar year. So I tell the people at closing that I'm going to have this Meet the New Neighbors party, and all the new neighbors have to wear a Hawaiian lei, and they have a different colored name tag. And then all the people in the neighborhood, the old neighbors, they're required, because I tease them, that they have to meet at least 2 neighbors. So usually what happens, and it's beer, it's wine, it's booze at the pool. Chad's Walk pays for the pool and the lifeguard, and I pay for everything else. And we have hamburgers and hot dogs, and I had 200 people at the party last summer.
That's
Wow.
great.
Yeah, it's fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, but if you give, you'll get. So, and everybody's budget is different. But think about something that you can do. The other thing that I do, which you guys know, is vendors. If we send out a blast and I have a vendor, I answer you guys. My ad in the Chad's Walk directory doesn't say, call me if you need to sell a house. It says, call me if you need any vendors. I have plenty. So call me for a painter, call me for an electrician. If I've helped you for 10 years do stuff, then probably you're gonna call me to list your house, I hope.
So when I get a listing and I'm marketing it, I send out just solds to that neighborhood. I also send out the open house about 3 or 4 days later, which is great because I typically will have about 30 neighbors walk through my open houses. And that's why my open house numbers are always really high because of that. So once I've done that, I send a thank you to the neighbors, to the whole neighborhood, even if they didn't come. Thank you for coming to my open house. I had a lot of people come in, a lot of people want this house, but this house wasn't right. If you are thinking about selling, call me. I've got buyers right now. So it's another touch I do after the open house. That didn't really help the listing, it helps me. But
That's a printed postcard or?
Well, no, the last one is a handwritten note that I Xerox and just rewrite the name at the top.
And then you mail them.
Mail them. So I mailed the neighborhood 3 times right away. I use Facebook a lot for advertising. I think it's really been great for me grabbing buyers, honestly. I haven't sold a house from it, but it's helped me with buyers. I'll make some kind of great post on Facebook about the new listing. I'll put it up. I'll spend $15 on it. I'll target ad it. So I'll say wherever it is, if it's whatever the neighborhood it should be, ages 22 through 55 or however I want to do it, male and female, living in this city who like these 7 things, and I'll just pay to put it out there, and I'll get anywhere from 2,000 to 8,000 views of my post. And by no means do I have that many people following me. I don't know how it works, but it does. And I'll have people comment it who I don't know. And they'll ask a question, and I'll reply, direct message me for more info, and they'll direct message me, and I'll respond about the house. Inevitably, the house isn't right for them, but then I can roll that into a buyer appointment, a buyer counseling appointment. So those Facebook ads work great for me. And it really makes my seller very happy, because when I give them the marketing report every other week that says how many views on Zillow they've gotten, how many views on Trulia, I'll say their Facebook post got 8,000 views on Facebook. And I mean, that really makes them feel that I'm doing something innovative and something different. I'll post that Facebook post on my page, but then I'll also make a video about the listing and put it in the community groups that somebody who wants to live there would like. So if it's a house in Harrison, I'll put it in, there's a Harrison Facebook group or Harrison area or something like that. I'll put it in about 4 or 5 different yard sale groups, anything like that. It helps me get my name in that area so people see me in Harrison over and over and over again, because I keep popping up in that group. So that's maybe one other good thing someone should do.
So all of us over 50 need to hire Ellen.
This is really great information, and I want to thank all 3 of you for participating during this.